DDG episode 11, first one, official one of 2020. My name is Dave Hunt, and I'm joined by Michael Swick.
Well, technically the last one was the first one of 2020, but we recorded it in 2019.
Yeah, so I don't know, because like if you get paid in 2020, it goes against your 2020 taxes, even when you worked in 2019. So
Yeah.
when does that one really count?
It doesn't, and you just stole money from your work, I guess. I don't know.
Or they taxed me for something
That didn't happen yet.
in the past, yeah. All right, we are Digital Days Gaming. We have spent a lot of time over the last week or so promoting the show, so hopefully there's a bunch of new people that are listening, and if you are listening, thank you so much for checking us out, and hopefully you haven't ran away in the first 10 seconds. Like I said, that's Michael. I'm Dave, and we have been doing this for a couple of months from the Digital Days standpoint. We've been podcasting for a couple of years on some other platforms, but we are here to hopefully bridge the gap for you in the digital gaming world of all gaming platforms, Nintendo, PC, Xbox, PlayStation, Stadia. I've seen somebody was playing some Stadia this week.
Trying.
But if you can subscribe to the show any way possible, we would appreciate it. You can also follow us on Twitch, where we do the show live every Sunday night, 9:30, 10 o'clock Eastern, depending on Michael's schedule and my schedule. Twitch.tv/DigitalDaysGaming. If you can follow us there, that's great, and that's free. If you can sub to us, however you choose, that would be amazing and a nice way to support us. If you have Amazon Prime, you can link it with your Twitch account and have Twitch Prime and use the Twitch Prime sub. I'll talk about it a little bit more in detail, but I have been able to access to link Discord and Twitch. So for you Twitch subscribers, something that we've been working on for a little while, that now that once you are subscribed and your Twitch and your Discord accounts are linked, it will grant you access to that private Discord channel that we have for supporters. Whether you're a Patreon supporter or a Twitch sub, you now have access to that channel through Discord. I just need everyone to link your Discord account and your Twitch account. The Patreon bot takes care of the other part. So, but yep, again, leave a review, share the show any way possible that you can, and interact with us through the community. But we're going to jump right into it. What we thought might be a light news week, it looks like we found a couple stories, so I'm going to throw it over to Michael.
Yeah, we found a few stories early January. First story, I believe we covered this movie a little bit in our first couple episodes, but the Uncharted movie has lost its sixth director. So Travis Knight, who his last movie was the Bumblebee Transformers movie, he has to leave production on this movie because Tom Holland's Spider-Man schedule is going to put the movie, or it's going to push the movie back a little bit. So he can no longer direct it, which means now they have to look for the seventh person to direct this movie. Apparently, Tom Holland is still signed up, so it will happen with Tom Holland no matter what. And Mark Wahlberg is still set to play Sully, and that isn't going to change. So those two are locked in, but they still do not have a director. I have no idea what the script even looks like at this point, because it's gone through so many directors who probably all took a crack at the script. So yeah, this is like the movie that's never going to be done. People were really upset that, like, Tom Holland, he's too young to play Nathan Drake. Mark Wahlberg's too old to play Sully. If this movie gets pushed back further enough, they will be the appropriate age they need to be for both Nathan Drake and Sully. But yeah, so just a quick news story on that. It's kind of funny watching this. It's like the video game movie that won't die, just because the names attached to it are just too big, and the directors that they keep getting for it, each one sounds pretty good, and then shit happens. And will this movie ever happen? Probably, eventually, hopefully. But
yeah, I mean, I think my wife we were somewhere and I was with my wife, and she saw your tweet, and she's like, oh, the Uncharted movie lost another director or something, and I'm like, yeah, that movie's like in development hell. So it's very, very fascinating and interesting to see what's going to happen, and it's got to come to a point where they just decide, like, just not to do the game, right? I mean, not to do the movie.
I would assume so. I mean, Sony seems to be really like set on making this happen, but yeah, at a certain point, you kind of just have to cut ties with it and just come to the terms that it's just not going to happen. But I guess with the star power of Tom Holland, like they really want to capitalize on that Spider-Man fame while they can. And they have Mark Wahlberg apparently signed up too, so it's a property that Sony owns already that is very easy, or in theory very easy to translate to film, so it'll probably just linger for forever until it gets done.
There's no time frame. I feel like there's no story that they want to tell in a movie that has to be, out. Obviously Sony owns the IP, owns the rights to it. This isn't a situation where they might lose something if they don't do something with it. Like we've always heard that if Sony doesn't release something Spider-Man movie wise every whatever it is 36 months, they lose their rights to it or something.
Yeah.
So there's no, I don't feel like there's any rush for this to like have to happen.
No. The only thing that I can think of stopping this, if the rumors of Apple buying Sony Pictures happens, then it'll probably die then.
Right.
But until that actually happens, this will just linger forever, and Sony will constantly come back to it because they own everything about it. So, of course, you have something that is a franchise that is a proven commodity. You're going to keep trying as long as you can until, you're purchased by Apple or Disney, probably in like 10 years. But yeah, and it's another thing that, like, if Sony can make this happen and then they can have another franchise to sell if they want to sell, they can say, hey, we have this successful movie franchise that can have video game tie-in, or already has video game tie-ins. But that just a short story for that. Just thought it was kind of funny, and we'll probably revisit this in a couple months when they find their next director. And then a couple months after that, when that director leaves, and then eventually Tom Holland will be too old and he'll be playing Sully, and they'll have to find the next young actor to play Nathan Drake. But moving on to other stories, this one is pretty interesting. It's kind of crazy that they're doing this, but also it makes sense. Respawn's boss, Vince Zampella, he's going to be the new overseer or studio head for DICE LA. DICE LA is been largely just like an artillery studio that helps out with other projects, but they are going to start working on their own video games. And EA, since they own Respawn, decided to tap Vince Zampella, who's having his studio, is having a hell of a year. Or had a hell of a year in 2019. They're seeing if he can manage both studios and hopefully get EA another hit. This seems like a really smart move. I don't know about you, Dave, but like it seems like a good move potentially.
Yeah, I mean, Fallen Order is obviously out, and that with that not being like, shockingly like a live service game, like I don't really think there's much work that they need to be doing on that. I'm sure that there is obviously work that they're doing on that game, but not to something you probably have to dedicate an entire team to. They're probably in the early, I don't even know, like early to mid-early stages of working on their next project, the Fallen Order team, which I would hope is Fallen Order 2.
Or their Titanfall 3, which they said they put on hold.
Yeah, so in terms of where that's at, maybe he doesn't have to be as much involved in it. I feel like from everything I'm understanding, the Apex team has pretty much gotten into a much better rhythm in terms of getting some stuff out and their seasonal content. So I don't know how much attention like he necessarily has to give to them. So it looks like it's an ideal fit of him to try to see if he can balance two things when his primary focus is in what I would I guess call a slight lull.
Yeah, the Apex team is probably just in an automated mode at this point. Respawn has been really proud of being an anti-crunch team, so their seasonal content isn't as crazy as a Fortnite. So he probably doesn't really have to oversee the Apex stuff, because right now at that point it's just, hero every couple months and costumes and maybe a new map eventually. And Jedi Fallen Order is probably just a like a one and done. I don't know if there's any DLC plans for that, but even then, it's wouldn't be anything more than like a small expansion.
Yeah, I don't think there is, and I don't really feel like the game's needed any like balancing or tuning adjustment to it. At least, I mean, we've heard about the console performance issues, but I think that's just something that is what it is.
Yeah, it's either the studios have figured out how to make an amazing game on the current generation of consoles, or it's just kind of rough and it's just kind of how it is until the next generation comes out. But EA's in like a desperate need of getting like studios in order, just because the Battlefield franchise has kind of been on a little bit of a lull. The games are still popular, but the last like 2 or 3 actually didn't really hit that well.
I mean, it hasn't been decent since 4. Like,
Yeah.
it hasn't had a staying power, at least for me.
Yeah, so it like that definitely needs work. Ghost Games and Criterion Games really haven't produced a hit. They closed Visceral. BioWare is probably going to disappear for the next couple years as they work on the next Dragon Age or Anthem 2.0. Or not, or they are working on Dragon Age, but Anthem 2.0 is still a question mark. So it makes sense that EA would look at one of their artillery studios and see what they can do. The lineage for the DICE LA group is they are like the remnants of Danger Close Games, who used to work on the Medal of Honor games, which it's been a long time. So the people that were at the Medal of Honor team are probably not at that studio anymore.
I hope not.
No, that would probably be like really depressing, going from making popular games to just kind of being an artillery studio, but it's consistent work.
Yeah.
At least.
And I mean, and it feels like Respawn, I was just thinking about it now where you're talking. I mean, Respawn's kind of gone 4 for 4.
Yeah, they've
Titanfall
gone
1, Titanfall 2, Apex, and Jedi.
Yeah, which all critical successes, and sales wise each one has probably increased more and more. Apex is its own thing, but it's definitely probably made more money than Titanfall 1 and 2 did. So they are definitely on an upswing, so putting him in charge of the other studio makes perfect sense for them. And EA has to feel the pressure, though, because if you look at Activision, the earnings Activision has been making this year, everyone is always saying, like, how long can Activision keep up their current stuff with Call of Duty? And then Call of Duty sells really well, and this Call of Duty is really successful, and their record earnings. And
I think people forget, too, that Activision owns, like, Candy Crush.
Which is consistent. Yeah. Like, Activision's having like a really good financial year. They also did some really shitty things, like fire a bunch of people. But in terms of the studio, the publishers that are making money, Activision's up there. Ubisoft is usually up there. They might not be up there this year just because they pushed so many games back, and Breaking Point wasn't too bad. But EA is like one of those companies that they kind of need to get their shit together and figure something out. Because they haven't had, like, other than, the Respawn games, they haven't really had anything outside of that blow up.
And I feel like that there's a part of the success of Jedi Fallen Order is that I think that an uninclined or uninvolved person might not even realize that Fallen Order is attached to EA. And then, come to think of it, when I play the game, like, I don't really think there's really much other than, like, a logo in the bottom left-hand corner. Like, you're not getting the EA logo slammed on you.
Which is probably a very deliberate move based on how Battlefront went, where they don't want to splash the EA logo everywhere. And it's EA's got to do a lot of recovery for their name and have to get a big hit. Because I don't even think any of their mobile stuff is hitting, and they really haven't done any acquisitions as of late. Outside of Respawn, 3 years ago?
Right.
Or, I think like 3 years ago. But, yeah, Vincent Pella seems like he knows what he's doing. I mean, he went from Infinity Ward to Respawn, and has done pretty successful. He's been successful throughout his entire career. So it's not a bad person. It is interesting to see him basically move up through the ranks of EA with this move. From just being like the head of a studio to now being the guy.
fully honest with you, I didn't really know who he was until he did that. I mean, I guess I knew who he was just because of, you know, the involvement we have with covering the games as from a media standpoint. But I never saw him. I think the first time I really saw him was during the Apex reveals.
Yeah, I the only reason I know about it because I don't think you're really following games when he was like ousted from Infinity Ward.
Mm-hmm.
Like that whole controversy of how they fired him and his partner from Infinity Ward. That's when I first heard his name. But yeah, before that, I didn't really like. I wasn't like, oh, this is a Vince Zampella Call of Duty game or a Medal of Honor game. So yeah, he's definitely one of those names, and he's becoming. Like, I don't think he ever wanted his name to be, like, up front, but, like, the Infinity Ward stuff kind of caused it to happen. And now he's probably going to be out there more and more doing stuff for EA, which EA probably could use, like, another face at this point.
Somebody else on the stage other than the couple of the guys that they put on their stages.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it seems like it's been a lot of, and this isn't a bad thing, but it seems like it's always been a lot of the people from Europe that have been presenting for EA, and it's like the FIFA guy, and then he has a good presence, but then I think that since he had a good presence and he's a good looking person, they had him start doing some other stuff that maybe he's just not qualified for.
Yeah, and that's definitely I think why this year they like step back, or 2019. I gotta keep forgetting it. We're not in 2019 anymore, which is part of the reason why they probably step back at their E3 stuff of, you know, just kind of doing the talk show and having Greg Miller kind of mediate everything.
Yeah.
Which, depending on how you feel about how that was presented, may not have been the right move, but it was definitely at least a move on their part to switch things up. But let's move on to the last story. This one is just kind of basically like a warning to people to be careful on the internet. You might, if you're on Twitter, you might want to mute the words Final Fantasy VII Remake or anything related to Final Fantasy VII, because the game has just been fully spoiled. I know it sounds dumb. A remake of a game has been spoiled, but this is like
spoiling Batman. His parents die.
This is a pretty extensive spoiler, so I'm not going to go into the spoilers. I've actually stayed away from them. But some people with hacked PS4s were able to get a hold of a demo that Sony uploaded to their servers, and they downloaded it and basically put up the whole demo, which is no big deal, but that demo actually had in its code soundtracked apparently the entire script, all the boss battles, all the locations, the character remodels, a ton of stuff that if you were hoping to be a surprise or, you know, you didn't want to be, you know, spoiled on, that's all out there now.
This is why demos don't exist anymore. This
is like crazy in terms of it
just
is a demo.
The data mining being a thing right now. Like, this is why this stuff doesn't exist. And people are like, I'm kind of looking through the article, but I'm spot checking things, and people are like, I can't believe that they just left all this stuff in the demo. And I'm like, I think in the way that the consoles are structured nowadays, I don't think it's just as simple as saying, okay, like, let's just take out this part. Like when I edit a podcast, or my wife edits a podcast, or Michael does, we can actually go in and say from minute 7 to minute 11, just take it out and pull it and put it up on and set it up somewhere, and nobody can hear what happened before, nobody can hear what happened after. The way that these games like get updated and evolve, I don't think that just a vertical slice to release as a demo is possible anymore.
And exactly, and this demo might not have meant to see the light of day. It's like some people with hacked PS4s were able to just get onto the Sony server and download it. This may have been like an internal demo, you know, that's passed around, you know, between the developers or publishers across countries.
I want to know what a hacked PS4 is, because this thing gets enough firmware updates for stability that I didn't think this thing was happening.
It's crazy, right? Like the idea that they like. The crazy, like, not only that it's like the hacked PS4s, but it's like Sony accidentally uploaded a demo to something that hacked PS4s were then able to access. But it just sucks. This happened to Kingdom Hearts last year. Pretty extensive leak a month before the game came out, and then
it's
it happens again.
It's got to be something in Square's development.
something is causing this to be a thing to where all this is just available. It sounds like
we're going to hear about Avengers next. Watch.
Probably, though that might be a little harder since that's a live service game. It sounds like the demo is the thing I played at E3, which is like a pretty cool demo. But the amount of stuff that is spoiled in here, like locations people didn't think would be in the game, to basically set up to where you know what the sequel will entail in terms of. No, but Dave right now is looking at me in the video of just like, yeah, but it's a remake of a game. But
I guess
now you know the
understand.
cutoff point.
Right. Okay. Yeah, I can understand. Does it go farther than Midgar? Because people were, surprised that it was. I think we've gone through multiple levels of emotion with this game. So from the terms of it being announced and it not being a, remastered, to finding out this is a remake, and then the rumors of it being episodic, and then people are like, what exactly does that mean? And then finding out that it is episodic, but it's going to be much more fleshed out than the original was. We're going to be spending, it appears, significantly more time on Midgar than you did in the original game. And that could just mean more fights. More fighting, more a little bit more of a grind of like how RPGs function now. But yeah, like where it starts, where it stops, and then it also, like, looking at this article, it looks like it might be leaking what's in the second episode.
Yeah, at least, well, because I wouldn't be surprised if the game had some sort of teaser trailer thing at the end of it, and that was leaking. And if it actually had the full script in it, they would probably have all that stuff outlined out so they can not have to worry about that as they make the second game. But it's pretty big. Everyone seems to be confirming that this is all legitimate, so the reason I put this out there is so you can mute all of the things related to Final Fantasy VII Remake if you plan to pick it up and don't want to be spoiled on something. But it's pretty huge if this all turns out to be accurate and true. But kind of crazy. Kind of crazy.
This is why demos don't exist anymore.
This is why, yeah... There was rumors that this demo might come out after the game came out, which totally would make sense if that was the case. Now I have a feeling we just won't see this demo, period.
Yeah. Somebody comes back from holiday break, like, what the...
Dude, this must suck for Square. Nomura, who worked on Kingdom Hearts, is working on this, and he had to deal with this with Kingdom Hearts last year, which I don't know if you remember, where he put out a letter, like, kind of apologizing for everything, and then telling people, like, hey, don't be an asshole. Don't be a dick, don't spoil it for other people. Now people that were looking forward to this have to kind of put their head in the sand until March.
Right. Which sucks.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, a little bit of a lighter news week, but some cool stuff to talk about. So what we're playing and watching, I'll go first because mine is relatively brief, just because I kind of just went into a little bit of a veg mode this weekend. I'll talk about one of the things that I'm watching, but I'll use it as my spotlight after the questions. Playing, I did not play Destiny this week.
I'm so proud of you.
Some of that had to do with just working and a couple things, and some of it had to do with it's just a low point in the season right now. There wasn't really anything like drawing me or enticing me to check it out. I did spend some more time with Darksiders Genesis. Still getting a little bit more comfortable with the game. I think I'm like through 3 or 4 chapters now, so I'm pretty comfortable trying to figure out the skill tree, and it's a little bit more like everything. Like I just wish that they would. Darksiders as a franchise would just decide essentially what they want to be and stay with that model. Darksiders 1 was very much dungeon crawl, Zelda-like game that, hack and slash. And then Darksiders 2 had a RPG element to it where you could like do builds and level yourself up. And then Darksiders 3 kind of went back is like, I would almost say in between 1 and 2, and now 4 has like a defense level and a power level, and I'm at this point where I noticed it right at the end of like my last playthrough the other day, where the next chapter it's recommending like 220 level 220 like attack power, and I'm like 184. And then when I knocked I was like just messing around on the game on stream, and when I knocked the difficulty level down a notch, it goes from like recommended 220 down to like 175. And both my characters, I think, are like 181 right now. But I feel like this is where some of the replayability of the game is, to where I need to go back and make sure I collected all like the creature cores, and maybe go back and replay a couple levels just to see if I can find a couple more of the collectibles to help power myself up. And the whole point of the replayability factor to it is the co-op, to where you can, if you go back and help a friend on chapter 2 and I'm on chapter 5, like I could still be looking for a chest that I missed. I could be hoping that certain items, certain loot essentially drops from defeating bosses, defeating other creatures, because the game kind of focuses a lot on creature cores and stones and collecting souls for currency to buy upgrades from the vendors. So there is this interesting loop aspect to it and then this is why people thought this was like a Diablo-like Darksiders when it was first shown. It's not quite to that level, because you can still customize and put the gems in the order that you want to, but I don't feel like the game has done as good of a job explaining the skill tree to me, and it's not a broad enough co-op game that I have somebody saying, hey, like somebody sitting there next to me, like, let's go through and do this, and I haven't ventured out into YouTube to see if there's videos showing me the ways that I would need to like maximize the skill tree and what I need to be really looking forward to, because that's not really what I wanted out of a Darksiders game. Like in Darksiders 2 there was always that build ability that you had, but you could still get through the game just playing it as like a hack and slash God of War style game. Like, yeah, you could maybe get through it faster, or maybe not struggle as much, or get health back every time you killed something, but you could still get through the game with just your ability and playing the game. And I don't know if this is going to be the case or not, but I almost don't want to start this next chapter, because I feel like I'm significantly under-leveled, which is not something I expected.
Overall, though, I know you're only a couple chapters in, so I should probably ask you this in a couple weeks. Everyone wants like the glory days of Darksiders 1 and 2, because Darksiders 3 was okay but kind of forgettable. Mm-hmm. Would you rather them continue it from like Darksiders 3 style gameplay, or would you kind of be into this being what they do?
I'll have to see how much better maybe the story is fleshed out. I've ran into a lot of conversations between War and Strife of them just kind of talking to each other, as in like in-game dialogue. And then there's some dialogue that they have with Volcrum, who is a vendor that most people are if you play any of the Darksiders games that you're associated with on a regular basis. But I haven't really seen how the other stuff is fleshed out in terms of exactly what I'm doing and why I'm doing it. And it could be, I heard it's a shorter campaign. I haven't really looked up how long it is, nor do I know how many chapters there are, so I don't know how far I am into it. But right now, the story arc seems kind of bland. Okay. The gameplay is fun. The twin stick style and switching between the characters is fun, and I really do want to play this game with someone. So anyone that's listening, and then if it comes down to, I guess I'll just play with Michael if you guys make me do it. I believe, and I do want to test this just from a sheer curiosity standpoint as well, but I do not think you have to own Darksiders Genesis to play the game with me. I think we can do that shared couch experience, because as much as I think you guys would be vastly entertained by it, I don't want my wife to play this game with me. So there seems to be, I'm curious to how the game functions when War and Strife are on the screen at the same time.
Yeah.
Because right now I'm just starting to run into the puzzles that I can see where like having two players makes it a little bit more fun and maybe a little bit less annoying, because like now I have to like throw a bomb over at a correct spot and hope it explodes and then time it right so that I do something else on the left side of the screen at the same time. And like that's fine. Like I'm used to those kind of aspects. But most of the time, though, they're built that way to do that, like throw the bomb and you have enough time that the bomb takes longer to explode. This one is really borderline close to that, where I definitely feel like they intended this to be a cooperative game primarily, and then, you know, during their focus testing, people said, like, you have to set this up a way for you to play the single player. So, but that's really all I've been able to play this week. I ended up not working a bunch, but New Year's Eve and New Year's Day I was working, and then I've been really, really tired this week. So I don't know if my body's just kind of like chilling out from all the ramp up to, you know, up to the holidays, and, you know, doing all that stuff around the, you know, Christmas time. But I was just really, really tired this week. So I got, you know, played a little bit of Darksiders. We went, my wife and I the other day went and saw Knives Out. So it's like Clue on steroids. Clue, the board game. Yeah,
I
on
really
steroids.
Want to see.
Yeah,
I really need to see Knives Out.
It's good. I mean, we were going back and forth between. We had some gift cards, so we were kind of going back and forth with what we wanted to see in terms of like Knives Out and Ford versus Ferrari, and then we also like the Mr. Rogers movie is very interesting to us. I think, what is that called? Wonderful Day in the Neighborhood or something. But I mean, so I saw the trailer for Knives Out. My daughter and my wife both were really like, I think you'll like it, and like it has a really, really good cast, and you know, don't go in expecting some major whodunit, but it's a good movie, and I feel like they kind of had to wrap it up quickly again, but it has an interesting end to it. I would have liked a little bit more. So, but
for me, playing and watching, I haven't touched the PSVR since last week. That's mainly because I wanted to get the Move controllers, but I also had to pay rent this week, so I was just like, maybe Move controllers can wait to my next paycheck. So I haven't really touched PSVR as much as I would have wanted to this week. I ended up messing with Stadia. Our friend Chaz gave me one of his buddy passes, so I played Stadia for the first time really getting into it. Played it on my desktop using the Chrome browser, but unfortunately I just didn't like the way it looked on the Chrome browser on my desktop. It just didn't look as crisp. It definitely felt like I was just watching a video. I messed with Thumper, which is a really good game to test the technology, because in terms of like any noticeable input lag would ruin that game, but it actually was really good in terms of the input lag was there, but it wasn't as noticeable as I would expect it to be, so I wasn't really messing up or anything like that. The only thing that took me out of it is the image quality, despite my internet being relatively good, like pretty good. It just, clearly it looked like I was just watching like a rip of a video, you know. It just looked like I was just watching like a 720p YouTube clip, and I was playing along with it, which was kind of disappointing. On my phone, it looks fantastic, but again, it's like on a smaller screen that it looks okay. But like when it was in Chrome, it just didn't look very vibrant, and it was kind of a downer. But it at least played well. Like I don't have any complaints about that. I also tried to play Samurai Showdown. It's crazy. No one's playing that game online. It was one of the free games for Stadia, and no one is playing that online. I ended up letting it search for a game for like good 20 minutes just in the background while I did other things, hoping that someone would pop up in a match. But despite it being one of the free games for the founders, no one's touching that game. I mean, it was smart for them to release like a fighting game for the founders for that, because a good test for input lag. When I play it against AI, don't really notice too much of an input lag on the Chrome browser or my phone. It just doesn't look as good as I would want it to look. The games I was playing, you know, on my phone, they look great. You know, it was nice crisp on my phone, and it played pretty well. But the screen is just too small for most of those games that they've released. You know, the game doesn't change like the UI like at all to make it, you know, more playable on a smaller screen. So it just kind of messed up, like my hope for the thing, especially because as a service there just isn't a lot going on right now for Stadia. And I have a 3-month trial that I started late December, so hopefully they have something good February, or I'm not gonna get much out of it. The tech works, it's just they just did not hit the ground running with the games lineup or the services.
And their pricing is out of whack too. So
yeah,
Darksiders Genesis is $29 on Steam. It's $40 on Stadia,
which is crazy, right? Because it's like, oh, it's not going to be too much extra work for developers. Apparently it is, because they felt they needed to charge more money for it. And then when you hear like, oh, Borderlands, it's on sale right now for $38, but if you buy that version of Borderlands, it's as current as October. And there's been significantly more patches since then. So that's a bummer. The tech works. I guess that's the only good sign, but I guess you're going to have to rely on like xCloud to be the thing that like pushes this forward in the future. And then my neighbor's dog is going off, which is just slightly
from your standpoint though, like you and I like might have the desire to play this game like on a television. It sounds like that you're saying that the input lag and you're not having any problems with that, but maybe it's not looking as good as you want it to look on the Chrome browser as you're expecting it to look.
Mm-hmm.
But we can't. I own a Chromecast. Like I can't play it on a Chromecast because my Chromecast firmware hasn't been updated for it to work. Yeah.
Do you have the 4K Ultra Chromecast or just the regular one? Yeah, because it only works on the Chromecast Ultra.
That came in the Founders Editions.
Yeah, they came in a Founders Edition. So if you have a Chromecast Ultra now, you don't have access to that, which is crazy. And
they're going to have to do these buddy passes again. Like they're going to have to give all of the current like subscribers a buddy pass again.
Yeah, because they've already done it twice. They're going to have to do it again if they want to like keep people invested. Because right now,
when it's working on the other Google devices, they're going to have to do it again.
Yeah, and until like when my buddy pass expires in March, I'm not going to renew. There's nothing here for me to renew. Especially, I don't want to play on my phone. I want to play on my computer. And if it's not going to look as good as a game that's running on my computer, then it's just, there's no point to it. It's like, okay, yeah, they can give me the highest quality version of the game, but if it just looks like I'm watching a stream, it's not worth it. Yeah,
or if there's nothing viable from their service of being a member.
Yeah.
Because what I found interesting is that Tomb Raider, I think, went away. So if you didn't claim it in December, it's not like this library is getting bigger and bigger. So like in June, we can look at it and say, hey, this might be worth it because if I become a member now, I get to go back and get all these games that are available. Not that you get that with PS Plus or you get that with Gold, but there needs to be some enticement to building this.
Yeah, there needs to be some sort of reason to do this, especially, they're going to want monthly subscribers. And if the monthly subscription is just like, hey, you get 2 games and they've all been really old. There hasn't been anything major new on the platform outside of their, one exclusive. There just isn't a lot there. Because, like, I sure as hell don't want to play Cyberpunk when that comes out on Stadia. Like, God, no. I'm gonna get that on PC or PS4. I'm not gonna get Stadia. There's like no incentive for me to put it, to spend the money on the Stadia version of that game.
Right.
Especially if it's not working for me. And there's no reason for it not to be working for me. My internet is pretty fast. When I do the speed test on Stadia, it says like, oh, you're good. You're fine. And then when I play it, I'm just like, this just doesn't feel right.
Yeah, I feel like I have good enough internet to if we have good enough internet to stream, and you and I both do, then we are totally fine with being able to play any Stadia game.
Yeah, and it's just it was just kind of disappointing, like because it's again everything works in terms of the input lag, connecting to a game is relatively fast, but it doesn't look good. And there's some amazing games coming out to it eventually, and if it's not going to be the best version of the game, it's just not much there for me. I played a little bit of the Switch, not a ton, to be honest. I played a little bit of more Earthnight, which I keep saying I want to review, but I want to get to the end, and the game is just way too difficult for me to get to the end to. so I got to put more work into it. I kind of have been like you the past week, where I think I'm just kind of dead tired from being overworked during the holidays, that this week I was just kind of like unwinding as much as possible. Me and Sarah did finish Dragon Age Inquisition. That was pretty cool to wrap that up. It was 100 hours. Like, it was crazy. It's just been something that, like, she's playing and I'm just watching. But now she's looking for her next RPG, and because we were watching the Witcher on Netflix, she wants to start The Witcher. So I'm gonna watch her.
Everybody I see has been playing The Witcher for some reason. I don't know if it's been the combination of the show, some streamers that I follow, and some Twitter stuff. Like, it seems like I don't know if it's a combination of the Witcher show coming out and Cyberpunk being so close.
It's the Witcher show.
Yeah, they're all trying to play the game. So
I reviewed the game for PS Nation all those years ago. So I wouldn't mind seeing the game again. It's funny, originally she wasn't really into the idea of, when she plays an RPG, she wants to be able to like create her own character, which is why Dragon Age works for her. So Witcher, when I told her to, it would be a good game, she was like, I want to create my own character. I don't want to display as like some old man. After watching The Witcher on Netflix, like a lot of people, like The Witcher on Steam hit its highest concurrent player count.
Yeah.
This past, or since the game came out. So she's probably going to play The Witcher again, which that means I'll probably be watching a lot of The Witcher, which I'm perfectly fine with, because I put like 60 hours into that game and I didn't see everything in that game. So,
but you also kind of had that powering through it feeling because you're reviewing it.
Yeah. So I stopped at 60 hours, but there was way more I could have done for that game. And we'll talk a little bit more about like how much you should play a game before you review it later with one of the questions. But yeah, I wouldn't mind doing that because after finishing The Witcher, I did what most people did. I bought the books because I never really read the books. I read little, snippets here. So I bought that. Everyone else is buying the book too because I couldn't find a hard copy on Amazon. They were sold out for the next 3 weeks. So I had to go with the Kindle version. Luckily, I had some credit from some of the holiday shopping I did. So I'm going to start reading the Witcher books on my Kindle, which I had to find because I had no idea where that thing was. Because I hate reading books on my phone, so I have a Kindle.
Those things are still like a champ, though, man. Like, they don't even get plugged in for 2 years, and they just work.
Yeah, mine probably hasn't been used in a year, but it totally worked. It was fine. So I'm gonna start reading the Witcher books because they were pretty cheap on Kindle, and I had some credit left over. But that's kind of it. There's a couple games that I still have my shame pile from Black Friday. I'm trying to get through. I still have random Switch games I keep buying just because it's so addicting to buy games on the Switch, even if I just play them for a couple minutes. And they're pretty good at having sales on indie games I had no idea existed. So a lot of... I'm just building my backlog. I'm just building a fucking grave for me to die in of backlog games. But that's it for me. Just finishing Dragon Age Inquisition, buying games on the Switch, and messing around with Stadia. I will say, it is nice. A couple times before I went to work, I just grabbed a DualShock 4 controller, threw it in my bag, and then went to work, and then just, messed with Stadia while at work. Just because the internet at work is perfectly fine for streaming Stadia to my phone. So it's kind of nice just having a controller.
What did it do to your back? Well, I know where you work in the field that you work in, so I think charging your phone isn't a big deal. But what did you do to your, did it do to your battery?
Oh, no, it drains the battery super fast.
Okay.
Significantly more faster than it does just streaming, video.
Okay.
Especially because it's, Bluetooth out to the controller. You're technically streaming video. My phone was really hot. I have a Pixel 3. My phone, after a half hour, got really hot, and the battery was draining super fast. But luckily, I was at work, so after a half hour session, threw that shit on charge, and I was good to go.
Right. You don't have a problem of finding a way to charge your phone at work.
No, not at all.
So, all right. So let's jump into some of our community questions. So you can ask these things in multiple places, and I just added another one just to drive Michael nuts. So you can use Discord. We have a channel on our Discord, Ask Digital Days. You can use the hashtag AskDigitalDays on Twitter. You can post in the Facebook group. Posting in the Facebook group is fine. We will pull questions out of there periodically, but I think that I might need to start some type of file or spot that those, maybe a document that those can just go on. And maybe they can post them. Because a lot of times they end up being questions that, and this is great, by the way, I'm not complaining about this, but they end up being questions that are being answered amongst the community, and they spark conversations amongst the community, and then us bringing them up a couple of the days later sometimes feels like it might have already been kind of hashed out a little bit. So, but it's amazing that so many of you are interacting with each other already. So Stefan in the Facebook group asks, who is going to get more than one console with the next generation? Personally, I am sticking with Sony. I have invested decades into their ecosystem and trophies and don't really want to diversify. I know there will be plenty of Sony exclusives that I will want, and indie games are amazing on the PS4, so I think that will continue. Or do you think I am missing out? Based on the last 7 or 8 years, I would say that no, I don't really think that you're missing out. I don't feel like there's been anything that was like a huge must-play on Xbox this generation. I don't know, do you agree, Michael?
No, there was a lot of games that interested me, but none of them got me to pull the trigger on it. Especially now with them going on PC, I have a gaming PC that should last me a couple years. Kind of kills my incentive to go with both consoles day one.
Right, but I meant even like if you were to write out must play, like so let's say that you had somebody that decided they were going to pick up video games. They had never played a video game before. They're the same age as you, and they wanted you to give them 10 recommendations of games that came out in the last 5 years. Is any of those games going to be on an Xbox platform?
No. And if they are, they're third party that you can pick up on Sony. So yeah, no exclusives, unfortunately.
Right.
The Gears games haven't really hit. The Halo games haven't hit this generation. Yeah, there honestly isn't.
So I don't think that you were missing anything out. Now, going forward with what Microsoft has done the last 2 years, and with the Games Pass and some of these things coming out, and the studios that they've purchased, that may change. It's still a concern, but it might change. Like, I mean, I think that if we were going to predict in the next 5 years in the future, at least, I mean, I might speak for Michael a little bit. I think Hellblade 2 might be on that list if somebody's asking him 5 years from now, what do I need to play 5 years behind?
Yeah, Hellblade could definitely be on that list, because the first one would have been on my list of games to play in general.
Right, but to your point, you'll be able to play Hellblade 2 on a PC.
Yep, and that's my current problem is
yeah.
I the only thing I can see that will sway me to picking up, like for me, PS4, PS5 day one, that's going to happen. That is going to be my launch console. If Game Pass continues to favor the Xbox console more than PC, that might be able to get me to sway in terms of what their third-party offerings are going to be on Game Pass. Like, Game Pass on Xbox One just added Grand Theft Auto 5, which is kind of huge. It's super late in its life cycle. But that type of third-party thing could get me to buy an Xbox. I'm still looking at some of the Xbox One deals of if it goes back down to $150, maybe I do pull that trigger because that library for Game Pass is so much bigger. But yeah, right now, based on what we've seen in terms of exclusives from the previous cycle, I'm not too excited for the new consoles in terms of Xbox exclusives, or at least not yet, until we start seeing something which, based on their acquisitions and the stuff they've already announced, might be 2-3 years down the road that we'll see some major stuff from these studios. Why Sony, on the other hand, we know we're probably going to get another Spider-Man. We're going to get another God of War. Naughty Dog's going to have to work on something after The Last of Us Part 2. There's just way more potential with the PS5 over the Xbox Series X. And then the PC just kind of has your back. And then don't forget about the Switch. The Switch is still going to be around for the next couple years.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm perfectly happy having the Switch be my indie game machine to hold me over.
Yeah, so I don't really think that I think it's a little bit more of a wait and see. Like Microsoft still has to prove some things to you, but Stefan, I wouldn't put it past. I don't know your gaming situation. Like I'm assuming like you're probably like 75% of the people where you sit on a couch or in a chair and play on a TV. But like the way that these PCs are working lately, you probably can get, like I said, my PC is probably only a $200 or $300 PC that I've piecemealed a couple parts into it and made some small upgrades to it. Like the graphics card, like I was able to purchase a couple things off of like the Facebook Marketplace, and I have a pretty decent system now. I haven't really like pushed anything on it to the masses, but playing the little bit of Halo that I played and playing Darksiders on it and playing Destiny on it and Jedi Fallen Order, like I haven't been disappointed. I need to see how Jedi Fallen Order runs after I put the additional RAM in. But these have HDMI outs that can plug into your TV, and you can plug a controller into them, presuming it's a Microsoft controller, and it will work. So I wouldn't put it past buying seeing a pre-built PC that has like an i5 in it. You don't really need anything like crazy powerful like you're hearing about, because you're probably not going to stream. So if you just need something to play, then I just don't tuck away PC gaming because of like what it looks like.
Also, like the benefit of PC gaming, Epic Store has some good sales usually, and Steam has been crazy. Like I'm sure, Dave, you've just been looking at Steam recently. You've probably seen a bunch of deals that you're like, shit.
Yeah,
like,
well, just putzing around on the Epic Games Store since like December 20th, and I know I missed some stuff. I just have opened it up really quick here. Like I got Celeste for free, Darksiders 2, Darksiders 1, Hyper Light Drifter, Shadow Tactics, and Steep. Like and I haven't, like, these are just games that are currently on my my Epic Game Store library right now, and I haven't launched any of it. So
yeah, wait till you start getting into Humble Bundles and the good old games. There's so many options that you'll be good with a PC next generation.
Yeah. All right, Kevin in the Facebook group wrote, "Is Killzone dead? No new games from that series since the PS4 launch. Really enjoy them games." You want to go first?
Yeah, I also love Killzone. Well, my love was mostly Killzone 2, and then a little Killzone 3, and then none for Shadowfall. It's probably dead because none of them really hit that well. Like, at all, really. And Sony tried. Sony put out 4 Killzone games, not including the portable ones, and none of them were major hits. And Guerrilla put out Horizon, which was a mega hit. It was a huge hit, and that's probably where they're gonna invest Guerrilla for the foreseeable future, unless they give Killzone to a smaller studio.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, I could see Killzone maybe being brought out without a campaign.
Maybe.
Just as like a multiplayer shooter or the cooperative thing, because I mean, Killzone Shadowfall was the first essential Killzone interaction that I had, and playing the story did not give me any desire to go back and play previous stories, and that's probably more of a fault of Shadowfall than it is Killzone 1, 2, and 3. But the multiplayer had some interesting choices that it made, and I think a lot of it was maybe out of their hands because they were kind of possibly instructed to do certain things because they were a launch title, that they had to take advantage of features that they had put a focus on, that Sony had put an emphasis on, that they wanted their players to be using. One of those that I found to be very interesting was they wanted you to party up in the system through the PlayStation 4 Party, not through in-game. I believe they added it in-game later, just based on player feedback. But I think that fell into the launch title blues, and then they started on a new project, and I just don't feel like there's a huge calamity for another installment in the Killzone series right now.
Sadly, yeah. The franchise always had potential. It just the audience just was never big enough, and now that Horizon exists, like, there's not much incentive for Sony to do it. The only way I think it happens is if they have a smaller studio work on it. Maybe remaster the second game. Or like, because they remastered the first game for PS3. If they bring back the games in like a package, but again, if they do it like they did the Uncharted remasters, they didn't include multiplayer in the Uncharted remasters. Killzone, you have to do the multiplayer, right? And I don't think Killzone 2 and 3 were different enough games that you can't just take like the best of Killzone 3 and the best of Killzone 2 and just put them in one multiplayer experience. You'd have to do them individually, which at that point would it be smart to put 2 Killzone multiplayer games out in the same time? Probably not. So I think Killzone, it's just too complicated for them to like bring back even in a remastered form, and they have better IPs to probably put their effort into. Sadly, because I like Killzone. I have a Killzone helmet behind me in the Twitch/YouTube video. But yeah, it's probably dead.
All right, you want to take the next question?
Yeah, this is from Chip. Have either of you guys played much of Days Gone? I finally wrote credits on it, I know, but I basically couldn't play anything over the summer, and I thought it was a fantastic game, contrary to most of the game site reviews. I thought the story was compelling, the characters engaging, very well written and acted, and the game was gorgeous, but most importantly, fun to play. I know that reviews reflect the taste of the viewer, but I can't think of a couple major complaints about this game, not having to do with bugs that got patched, and prove they didn't play more than a couple hours of it. What are your thoughts about the game and the ethics of professional reviewers that will write about and score a game without having played much of it? Sorry for the lengthy post. Keep up the great work. All right. It seems like our community is like really into Days Gone, which Days Gone is a good game. If you're on the Facebook group, a lot of people are like, either they played Days Gone or they're just getting a Days Gone now.
Well, it was $20 in December, which I think is a huge factor into it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
But Dave played a little bit. I reviewed it for the previous site, and I enjoyed it, but it did have a lot of bugs, and that's the problem with like the review system is you get the game oftentimes before the day one patch, and you have to put a review for the embargo day one. So, and those rules are typically set by, the publisher of the game. So, like Sony knew, that they were having people review the game that isn't fully patched yet, and you'll get notes about like, hey, this will be fixed in the day one patch, and you take their word on that. I like Days Gone. I think I ended up giving it like a 7, despite all the bugs in it that were eventually patched out. But it just kind of goes with the system in terms of you get a game pre-release for review, and you have to review with what you have there and what will be available day one. A lot of the Days Gone patches didn't come until a couple weeks after the game, which you can't really expect reviewers to like stick with a game that much, especially like the big reviewers at big websites. They have to constantly move on to the next game. They can't put like an individual reviewer on like, okay, you were the Days Gone reviewer. We need a review for day one. We need a update 2 weeks down the line, and then an update like a month or two down the line. It's just not feasible. Dave, do you want to jump in on that a little bit?
I mean, in general, I think that you need to take any review with a grain of salt. You need to find somebody or a couple of somebodies that have similar gaming styles to you. I think with the integration of Twitch, not the integration, but the moving into the more of the spotlight that Twitch and Mixer have done, I think that your ability to research whether or not you want to play a game is far, far easier than it was 5 years ago. Before I started doing some of the stuff that I've been doing, I had, like a couple of connections with some people that did some stuff at IGN and some other sites. Finding someone that has similar systems and ways that they play games and what they like and don't like that you can find if they mesh with you, it is very important. And then asking that person, questions like that directly. But, bashing on a reviewer or a review, I think, is very hard to tell somebody that the way you feel is wrong.
Mm-hmm.
So, and that's what a lot of people are doing. And I've been looking into it and always paying more attention to it now with Digital Days, with what we're doing with Digital Days of trying to figure some things out. Reviews are in the plans, and the review scale and how it works are all things that we have to still kind of like hash out. But like IGN has changed their review scale. Not that they're perfect, and I understand that they've had all their problems, but they are still one of the predominant leaders in the gaming service industry. They just went back to a 10-point scale like this in January. They got rid of their decimal system, and they've changed so many times from, a 20-point scale, a 100-point scale, a 10-point scale. And it's so hard to decide like what constitutes somebody, playing a game or not playing a game. Like for me, one of the games I had a really hard time with, and I don't think I ever actually wrote it as a review, but I did stream it a bunch, was Rage 2. I was having a lot of fun with that game, but I can only play it in like 2-hour increments because I feel like it started to make me motion sick. Which is one of the first games that has done that. I am finding that it might take some brain exercise for me, but I think as I've been playing games over 60 frames, it does mess with me a little bit.
Okay.
So, I had this problem years ago when I couldn't play first-person shooters, like 10 years ago, because they like made me sick. And I do find that I need to like sometimes reduce the sensitivity and the aim sensitivity down more, just for the way that I function. But I have a hard time explaining to somebody like, oh, this game is a lot of fun, but I can only play it in 2-hour increments, and because of certain scenarios. But that's not the developer's fault. That's not Rage's fault that me as a person can't, for whatever reason, during that particular day or that particular week, can't figure it out. And then sometimes in a review is also reflective of what that person is going through at that time. Certain things that happen in games affect people multiple ways. Like, again, not that Hellblade is the ultimate example, but that Hellblade hit at a good time when people were when mental health was being talked about a lot.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm sure that had a factor into how great the game was. It was already a good game that also hit at the right time.
Yeah, and you'll read reviews that go into like what that game meant to them, and it will have a deeper meaning for people that can relate to that. And sometimes you have a reviewer that can't really relate to it and still reviewing it and still has a right to review it, but they might not see it at a deeper level as someone else. And that's where Dave's thing of like, do you just have to kind of pick reviewers that you trust and kind of have an idea of what they feel about games and just kind of follow them, as opposed to just going to random reviews and being like, oh, fuck that, they didn't like the game.
And read it.
Read it, yes, read it.
Read the article. Something. Don't look at review of game I'm interested in and scroll to the bottom and see he gave it a 6. F him, he's dumb.
Yeah.
Don't look at
Metacritic. Like, don't look and scroll
through.
I
have no problem looking at Metacritic. Like, go to Metacritic, but read 3 or 4 reviews.
Exactly.
Read 2 or 3 high ones. Read 2 or 3 low ones. Okay, this person doesn't like the fact that the inventory system, like me, I hate being in your menus a lot. Or not having the option to, yes, I know I play Destiny, which is a menu game a lot, but I can do that in the loading screen.
I didn't want to say.
But there's different factors that I can do some of that menu stuff when I'm by myself, and at the same time, like, I get it. Even me, when I start looking at things, I just want to go play and I want to shoot something, like, to where like that aspect of it is still there. But if you don't have a problem spending time min-maxing things and looking deeper into how things function and how things work, it's the same problem I just talked about with Darksiders. Like, I don't want to spend a bunch of time messing around with that creature core system, the skill tree. I just want to be able to play the game, get stronger, and feel like I'm more powerful. And that's the hardest thing for any developer to do, is to figure out the ways of offering a deeper meaning in the game, but still allowing you to play the game. Mm-hmm. Like, and anybody that matches it well, like Jedi Fallen Order with the skill tree did it well. Hey, there's little pictures of it. Like, here, click on preview. You unlock this ability. You can do this with the force push. Oh, that's cool. I want it. Spend. And then it shows you how to use it. That's dumb. I don't want it. Okay, let me go back to playing. That works. Other games can be a little bit more involved. And, like, that's the same problem I had with Division 2. It's like the 0.25% chance increase of your gun shooting faster. Like, that's dumb. Like, I think it's dumb. Yeah. So.
And then when we get to the last part of the question of, like, our thoughts on, like, how much the game has been played and how that kind of factors in, that, like, the amount of time played varies. I think if it's, like, a really short game, you probably should play it from finish to end. If it's a couple hour game, probably should see the entire experience because it's doable. But when you have, like, like, if I have to review a 100-hour RPG, or, like, if I put 60 hours into a game, I feel like, like, that might be enough to be like, hey, I invested 60 hours of my life into this game. Did I see credits? No, but 60 hours is a lot of gameplay, enough to form an opinion about it and then write about it, depending on, the type of game or type of experience. It's like saying, like, Dave put so many hours into Destiny 2, and say Dave didn't see, like, the credits on Destiny 2 for whatever, but put, like, 100 hours into it. Because he didn't see credits, his 100 hours are invalid, sort of thing. I know that's not possible, or, like, that's not possible for Destiny, but you know what I mean. Like, if you invest a certain amount of time into it without seeing credits, I feel like your opinion's still valid. You can still write a review on it. The judgment on how much of a game you should play, it's going to vary person to person. Like, in my head, if it's a short game, you should play the whole game. If it's a game that takes dozens and dozens of hours, probably should do it. What muddies the waters even more, just like, live service games. When do you review a game that's an ongoing service? Or, like, when do you, like, how many hours do you put into...
Well, we've talked about it for years, but if you pull up a review right now I don't even know what it is, but if you pull up a review for Rainbow Six Siege on Metacritic,
makes no sense.
It's terrible.
Yeah.
And that game is a top esports game because of what they've been able to do and rebuild and grow over time.
It's that type of thing is kind of what I like about, like, podcasts, and not to toot our own horn, but, like, our show where we will just talk about the games we're playing and revisit them.
Rainbow Six Siege on PlayStation 4 came out in 2015 and has an average Metacritic score of 73.
Yeah, and it's one of the bigger esports game.
Yeah.
If you would review the current game now, it probably would get a significantly higher score than that. But I was saying, I like more discussions about games and getting the feel of a game over a long period of time, which kind of defeats the point of, like, a review day one, I want that review now sort of mentality. But it's just the way I prefer things to be, because people get too into, like, the review stuff, and it's just people's opinions at the end of the day, so a lot of stuff, it gets put into it, but it's not that big a deal at a certain point. Just find the reviewers you like and then stick with them and, see how they feel about things. But yeah, you can, it's very easy to just get into a fight over some of this stuff, with how the internet works.
I went back and quickly looked. Far Cry 5 was something that I reviewed for PS Nation, and it was one of the games where, like, as I was playing it, I was having conversations with a friend of mine, and somebody actually brought up a good point that they, like Zeus, I've known Zeus for years, and he said that, because he gets to talk to me sometimes while I'm playing a game or in a party chat when I'm reviewing a game early, and he goes, have you ever thought about just recording your thoughts, like, every day after you play the game, and then release that or listen back to it, like, after the embargo is lifted, and you talk through, like, what you played, what you liked, what you didn't like, and I thought that would always be something really cool, but you already are always formulating a score in your head as you're playing through it, and a couple people would ask me, like, what are you leaning towards, and I would kind of bounce some feedback off them about what I thought about things to help me, write well. Not that I do that anyways, but and it allowed me to think things through, and I already like had given, I was getting close to beating the game, and I'd given the game a score in my head, and I kept telling myself, as long as this doesn't make a dramatic right hand turn at the end, like I think it's going to get this. And does that mean that because I do beat the game or don't beat the game that I'm any more or less qualified to review it?
Yeah,
probably not. So just because like, should one aspect of a game, like the last 15 minutes of a game, have that substantial of an impact on the score? So should Days Gone, that like everything that I've heard like gets really good and really fun like 40 plus hours into it, like should that impact the score of the game? Maybe, because it takes 40 hours to get there.
Wait, and that's another thing you have to factor in. Like, if I'm saying like, hey, you have to play this game for 60 hours in order to enjoy it, Dave, as someone who has a full-time job and has a family, his opinion on that kind of matters too, of just like, hey, I can't invest that time into this game. I can only invest this amount of time into the game. And was it worth it? Like Dave didn't finish it. If you didn't finish Days Gone, could you technically review Days Gone if you're like 3/4 the way through? Because it's like, this is the time that someone with my sort of lifestyle and schedule can put into the game.
And as a game developer, that's a choice that they make that can be praised or can be not praised.
Mm-hmm. So, yeah.
Some people might like the fact that like I spend $60 on a game and I get 100 hours of playtime on it. I have that conversation with people all the time. Like, I didn't have to pay for very much Destiny 2 content, but even if I did, like that game has gotten more money's worth out of me, more dollar per hour than any other game over the last 5 years. And I would assume that you could probably have a similar conversation about Overwatch.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
It's like you spend $60 on a game, and I've been playing it for, for me, I spent $200 on a game. I've been playing it for 6 years. I think that's a pretty good investment. Very similar to Madden players or Call of Duty players that, spend $60 and you play the game for an entire year, 3-4 days a week. Like, you're getting your value out of it.
Yeah. So. Yeah. Everyone's different with that. So you almost have to research the reviewer when you're researching games on what you need to pick up. But like you said too, like the continued conversation around like, I'm going to like, part of what I want to focus on in 2020 is beating more games, or not necessarily beating more games, but diving deeper into more games. And Days Gone is on that list, and Horizon and Spider-Man are on that list. So you're going to hear me talk about that now. And maybe you didn't play Spider-Man because at launch you heard something that maybe you didn't like about it. But then, a year and a half later, I tell you something that you're like, oh, maybe I should check it out. Like, you don't get that if you go into the store and Google Spider-Man review. Mm-hmm.
So.
Yeah. That's it for questions this week. So Dave, you wanted to spotlight something, I believe?
Yeah. So you're gonna you don't know anything about this, and you're gonna laugh at me about this. If you follow me on Facebook or you're friends with me on Facebook, you might have seen this. But I keep saying that I'm not like invested in the Star Wars universe, but like it's been the focus the last couple months, because of Mandalorian and the movies, and trying to some other things that are going on. So, like I said, my wife and did I talk about watching Clone Wars last week?
You talked about maybe doing it.
Okay, so we are doing it.
Oh, okay.
And and either my wife or I found an IGN article that actually lists the order that you should watch the episodes as they happen in the timeline, not necessarily when they were released.
Oh, okay.
So it had us, I don't have it in front of me, but it had us like watch some 2 random episodes off of Disney Plus, and then it had us watch the movie. And then after watching the movie, it put us back into some other episodes. So we were about 5 or 6 episodes into this and the movie into this before we went into essentially season 1, episode 1. I will try to get the link to that in the show notes if it's something that you're interested in. But so we've probably watched, because they're only like 20 minutes on Disney Plus. The movie was a little longer. But the thing that's like the most fascinating to me right now is that it has been shining a lot of light on multiple Jedis, and including, and I hope I don't think it does, but I would like to see the little tidbits of like what's happening to Anakin as he's getting older. That's, because you essentially, you see a little bit of it in episode 3. My understanding of Clone Wars is it takes place between episode 2 and 3.
Okay.
in the time frame of things, and then there's more coming like in February. There's another season of Clone Wars coming in February. So just the relationship that Anakin has with Obi-Wan in the show, it's like a cell shaded. I don't care what it looks like, but it's good because it's only in like 20-minute increments. So but like the spotlight on that is just like finding, you know, something that you're interested in and just having the ability to continuously watch something. Like The Witcher is very similar. Like what impact The Witcher show is having on the community, to where what is Witcher, like 5 years old?
Yeah.
Witcher 3.
Yeah.
And now all of a sudden it hits the highest player base it ever has, and it has to be because of the show. That game's been $4 like before, you know. The complete edition's been like $9, so it's not like it was like all of a sudden just went on sale or anything like that. But I think that finding something, you know, like our buddy Josh had always talked about watching the CW DC shows in particular order of events as they're happening, so he doesn't feel like out of the loop, like where he integrates, like he'll watch, I don't even know what the order is, he'll watch Arrow and he'll watch Flash and then he'll watch Supergirl, then he'll watch the other episode of Arrow before he watches, you know, in terms of understanding the timeline. I'm still not 100% for sure always what's going on in the Clone Wars, but just the focus on more Jedi, and that's the part that I feel like might be really cool, that the Star Wars saga focused on those three stories: the Anakin storyline, the Luke storyline, and the Rey storyline, and that's really only focused on primarily on three Jedis. But it's, you know, like we hear about it in the movies, but it sounds like there was hundreds of these.
Yeah, it was a whole thing. There was a lot of Jedis.
Yeah, so
we only focus on the Skywalkers.
Right. So like, and seeing some of these, and again, I'm not 100% for sure if like how canon Clone Wars are. I know it's Filoni's doing them as well, or did them as well. I don't know if he's doing the new ones, but just the fact of them, as many as I've seen in the cartoons that are non-human, you know, it's been fascinating. So I just thought it was cool. I'll try to get that link in the show notes if you guys want to check that out. But I don't know. Do you have anything else that you're spotlighting? Or
The Witcher. I'm reading the Witcher books. So if anyone else is doing that, maybe we can do a Witcher talk on Twitter. But yeah, my spotlight is old ass game and like 20, 30-year-old books. But yeah.
Wow, you are embracing being 30 years old now.
Yep. I'm reading books. Reading books.
All right, so we're gonna wrap the show up. Last couple of things that I just want to make sure. I sent out emails to our Twitch subscribers and to our Patreon subscribers through the various websites that we can. We did make a pretty big overhaul to our Patreon. I just want to pull it up to make sure that I get it all correct. So if you want to support us on Patreon, you are more than absolutely welcome to do that, and we would appreciate that. The biggest change that you'll see is to the $5 tier. Well, the first change is the $3 tier now grants you access to Discord. The reason being for that, full disclosure, is that everybody knows that most people know that a Twitch subscription costs $5. Us as affiliates receive $2.50 of that. Therefore, the three, and we told people, if you subscribe to us on Twitch, you'll get access to a private channel on our Discord, and so we're getting $2.49 from you. Therefore, the access through Patreon to that is a $3 tier. So that's where that comes from. And then the $5 tier now is early access. So this is down from 10 down to 5. And it is 24-hour early access. So our show typically releases on Thursdays. Thursdays at 6 a.m. Eastern. And if you are subscribed to us on Patreon at the $5 tier, you will get it 24 hours early on Wednesday morning. It looks like you will get a completely separate RSS feed. So we are going to experiment with that with this episode. I may even just bump myself up to the $5 for this month just to see how this works so I can see it on my end. I know, like, I use Podcast Addict on my phone, and I do have the ability through being signed in as the Patreon, as Digital Days Gaming on my Patreon app, that now that I clicked to get the RSS link and it asked me how I wanted to open it on my Android phone, and I told it Podcast Addict, and I have 2 different tile icons on Podcast Addict for Digital Days Gaming now, one of which is empty and the other is our current feed. And the new one is the black Digital Days Gaming logo, like it is on our Patreon, and the one that we have publicly through Simplecast is the gray background. So that's the first change, and then $7 per month is the bonus content, and that's where it ends. So we pretty much reduced everything a couple bucks just to make it streamline it, make it a little easier, and just then but while doing this, as I was learning how to mess with Patreon, I changed the tiers, and when I did that, I think I accidentally deleted a tier, so I had to create the tier again. And when I did that, it did not necessarily link every single person to the correct tier. So there are 12 of you that are currently supporting us on Patreon. So thank you. For those of you that, if you are under the $1 tip jar, you are appreciated, and I don't really need you to do anything other than to continue giving us our $1 a month, and you are appreciated. You essentially, like I've mentioned before, pay for us to produce the podcast for 1 month by doing that, when you do that for the entire year. Anybody else that's higher, 3, 5, and 7, and a couple of $10 Patreons, thank you, Chad. I need you to go back in and just reconnect it with the tier that you're affiliated with. I don't 100% for sure know how that's done. In terms of, it might show a no tier affiliation with you, and you should be able to go in and select your tier. And when you do that, it should send you the invite via email to the Discord server. If not, you can join the Discord server and just message myself or Michael, and I can fix it. I will show Michael how to fix it when we have a chance to him and I to sit down. And I don't know how much he knows about Discord, but I spent the other day like really messing with Discord. If you are subscribed to us on Twitch, and like I mentioned earlier, and you link your Twitch account to your Discord account through Discord, it will just automatically give you that role where you have access to the supporter channel. So we really wanted that Discord to be somewhere, especially in that supporter channel. Like, if you want to talk directly to us, like that'll probably be the easiest way for you to talk directly to us, of something that we'll monitor regularly and try to respond as soon as we can. But that, because that's affiliated with, some of the Patreon things. But both of us do a really good job of socially interacting with everybody. But in terms of like, if you really want some direct one-on-one conversation, that can be in there, because the only people that will be in that supporter channel are people that have chosen to subscribe to us through Twitch, or that are, putting their wallet out there for us. So if you got an email from me, please look at it. It might be in your promotions folder on your Gmail files or anything like that. And then continue to support us. You guys have continuously blown me away this is just me talking. Like, you've blown me away on Patreon. When I look at an email and I see somebody that's supporting us, like, it's amazing. And we reach out to them and say thank you, and they're like, no, absolutely, we love what you do. Like, that fuels me. And not because you're giving me money, but because you're choosing to support what we're doing in more of a way than just, here, I like what you do, thanks. Those are great. But then, putting forth that extra step always, kind of hits me. So thank you. I don't know, you have anything else you want to add with the changes?
No, just we just wanted to restructure. We kept talking about when we were doing this that we were restructuring how the Patreon work in January, and this is our first step towards restructuring it. There's still things that we can do and figure out as we go. So this won't be the last time we do things. This will probably be the biggest thing we do to it, but there might be little tweaks here and there. But like Dave said, anytime we get some sort of like support, it's great. Anything from a like on Twitter or a share on Facebook, or just a tweet that says "Good job, guys." That we love and appreciate that. And the people that are supporting us on Patreon and Twitch, like it's huge for us. It's definitely something that helps motivate us as we continue to do this and grow. Gives us incentive to like work harder and do more things. But yeah, thank you for everyone supporting us in these early stages, and hopefully we can do more and more things as we figure things out, because we are constantly in the process of learning new things Dave, I know, was like going through like Facebook page and group things and was like, did you know we can do this? And it's just like, I did not know that, but good. So we're still learning and tweaking things. So
if there's something, if there's something that we're not doing that you guys want, that you think that is, one, that's easy, or two, is something that you would like to see, like just let us know, and I can look into it, whether it's Patreon or whether it's a Discord function or whether it's a Facebook group thing, like I mentioned about maybe having somewhere for the one file for everything to go into. Anybody that's really good at that kind of stuff or has done any of that before, please let me know. I got out of the loop on it for a little while, and I'm trying to get back into it. I do have what I call like a Discord guru that I haven't spoken to in the last couple of days, but I will probably get him into my channel, into our server, and let him kind of do what he does in terms of, he's done some really, really good things on my Destiny server that I have. But I want to be careful that we don't spread ourselves too thin.
Yeah.
So any help that anybody can give us from that. I had a couple people I used as some guinea pigs. Randy, thank you. Branham, thank you. Like I pinged you guys during the day and you were right there ready to mess with it. We've had the DDG server for a little while. I just wasn't really messing with it, and I realized, like, I sent an invite to Michael. I'm like, oh, you should probably be in this. So, and like there's a couple things that I've been learning in there with bots and roles and and stuff like that. And then it'll also tell you, like, you can see if I'm live. You can like check the Discord and you can click right to it. The Discord and Twitch integration is really cool. But if there's something you want to see us do, like, just let us know and we'll be more than happy to look into it. But listening to you guys and interacting with you guys and being places where you guys want us to be is important to us. And it's always cool to see just the interaction and the growth and the support is always just amazing. So we thank you guys so much, and I hope everyone has a great week. And something that I found that for my new year that I just want to make sure that I, not that it's always a catchphrase, but just keep moving forward. So 2020 for me is going to be to keep moving forward. So I hope everyone has a great week and keeps moving forward.
My mic was muted. See ya.